The storm rose suddenly, thunder shaking the sky as the villagers gathered under the ancient baobab tree. The air smelled of rain and fear, and whispers of ancestors echoed through the wind. Kato, the young warrior, said, "Why do the spirits roar tonight?" The wise elder Amari raised his hand, his wrinkled face carved with dread. He whispered, "The balance has been broken, a sacred heirloom stolen, and with it the crown's blessing." A deep shadow moved across the horizon, lightning flashing to reveal the figure of a stranger holding a golden crown dripping with blood. The villagers gasped, their cries piercing the night as the earth trembled beneath their feet. Suddenly, Amari clutched his chest, falling to the ground, his voice trembling. "The curse. It begins anew." Kato rushed to him, his heart pounding with terror as the old man's final breath carried a name he could barely understand. "Kato, your destiny awaits." Silence followed, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the distant cry of drums summoning unseen forces. The world shifted that night, and the path to the throne was no longer lit by peace but by storm and blood. The village was wrapped in silence, broken only by the echo of drums from distant hills. Kato stood trembling, staring at the place where Amari had fallen. His chest felt heavy, as though the ancestors had pressed their burden upon him. Villagers whispered, fear mixing with anger. One woman cried, "The crown is cursed, we are doomed." Another voice rose, "The heir must rise, or all will fall." Kato's heart pounded, each word a weight he could not yet bear. He whispered, "Why me? Spirits, why now?" His hands shook as he touched the ground where Amara's life had ended, feeling the warmth of destiny seep through the soil. The baobab tree loomed above, its branches swaying like arms of forgotten ancestors reaching for him. The night grew colder, but in his chest a fire began to stir, not of choice but of necessity. The world had changed, and Kato could not turn away. He did not yet understand, but the path had already begun. The villagers gathered around the baobab tree as rain softened into mist. Torches flickered, their flames struggling against the wind. An elder woman named Nia said, "The curse awakens, as foretold." Her voice quivered, though her eyes burned with sorrow. Kato stood silent, his gaze fixed on the ground, his thoughts echoing louder than the drums. He wanted to flee, to escape the burden, but the whispers of the people clawed at him. "The bloodline must rise," one man cried. Kato clenched his fists, shaking with doubt. He whispered to himself, "I am not ready." The branches of the baobab swayed, and the sound seemed like voices of spirits urging him forward. He lifted his eyes to the horizon, where lightning revealed the dark figure still holding the crown. His jaw tightened, and fear battled against duty in his chest. The crowd's fear turned to murmurs of blame, voices rising in accusation. "It is the spirit's wrath," one villager cried. "No, it is betrayal," shouted another. Kato felt their eyes pierce him, as if demanding answers he could not give. Ow! His chest burned, not from anger but from fear. The storm clouds broke slightly, moonlight spilling onto the crown's reflection in a distant puddle. His mind screamed with questions, but his heart whispered only one truth. He had been chosen. "If destiny has cursed me, then I will face it," he muttered, his voice trembling. The villagers grew quiet, watching him with a mix of hope and dread. The baobab tree groaned under the weight of the wind, its presence a reminder of ancient spirits. In that silence, Kato's path shifted from boy to leader, though he did not yet see it. The drums grew louder, pulsing like a heartbeat from the hills. Kato felt each beat strike his chest, binding him to the prophecy whispered by Amari's dying breath. His eyes closed, and he saw flashes of fire, war, and a throne drenched in blood. He gasped, trembling, as if ancestors poured visions into him. The villagers watched, silent, sensing his change. Nia said softly, "The spirits mark him." The words fell heavy, filling the air with awe and fear. Kato opened his eyes, the storm's remnants glistening in his gaze. His voice quivered, but carried resolve. If I am chosen, then I will walk this path." The people bowed their heads, knowing a new journey had begun. Above them, the baobab's branches stretched skyward, as though carrying his vow to the heavens. The dawn broke heavy with silence, mist rising from the fields as the village struggled to recover from the night's terror. Kato sat alone near the baobab roots, his body aching with dread, his spirit shaken by the elder's death. His mind replayed Amari's last words, the name whispered like thunder, destiny. The villagers gave him wary glances, as though he carried both salvation and doom in his chest. Nia approached slowly, her staff tapping against the ground, her eyes sharp as a hawk. She said, "The spirits chose you, and you must listen." Kato's lips trembled as he replied, "I am no king. I am only a warrior, unworthy of crowns." Nia's gaze softened, though her voice cut deep. Worth is not chosen, it is proven. Behind them, smoke from cooking fires curled into the morning sky, blending with chants of mourning. The people needed guidance, and whether Kato wished it or not, his journey had already begun. The protector, Jabari, stepped from the crowd, his muscular frame towering like a shield against despair. His eyes burned with loyalty as he knelt before Kato, saying, "Where you walk, I will follow, even if it leads to death." The villagers gasped, for his pledge was not given lightly. Kato shook his head, voice low, "You should not carry my curse." Jabari's tone rumbled, fierce as thunder, "It is not curse but honor." Nia smiled faintly, seeing the bond that would anchor destiny. Still, Kato's heart wrestled with doubt, each beat echoing his fear of failure. Behind them, the villagers began to chant softly, seeking strength in tradition, voices weaving through the air like ancestral hymns. The morning sun broke through clouds, casting golden light upon Kato's face. For a fleeting moment, he felt the weight of his people's hope, and it frightened him more than the storm itself. By midday, the council gathered in a circle near the fire pit, faces solemn with grief and suspicion. Nia stood tall, declaring, "Without the crown's blessing, our land weakens." Murmurs spread like wildfire, blame pointed at shadows. One elder growled, "Perhaps the gods punish us for broken oaths." Another spat bitterly, "Or someone among us conspires." Kato's chest tightened as their eyes turned toward him, whispers laced with both fear and expectation. He felt the fire's heat on his skin as if it were judgment. Jabari placed a firm hand on his shoulder, steadying him. Kato said, "I did not ask for this path, but I cannot flee it." His voice shook, yet it carried further than he expected. The council grew quiet, their silence heavier than words. Above them, smoke curled into the sky, carrying prayers to ancestors who now watched every step. That night, the village gathered for a ritual of mourning. Torches blazed, shadows danced across painted masks, and drums thundered like restless hearts. The people sang old hymns, voices trembling with grief yet filled with power. Kato stood at the edge of the fire circle, watching flames reach skyward like prayers. Nia touched his arm gently and whispered, "The spirits measure courage by the weight of fear endured." His chest tightened as he stepped forward, his shadow mingling with the firelight. Jabari chanted beside him, his voice strong as a shield. Together, they honored Amari with offerings, calabash bowls of milk, and beads placed into the flames. The villagers bowed their heads, and the fire roared higher, crackling with unseen energy. Kato's heart pounded, sensing that the ancestors listened, waiting for him to rise, though he still doubted if he could. As the fire dimmed, silence fell heavy. Kato lifted his gaze to the night sky, stars scattered like ancestral eyes. His voice wavered but carried strength. "I do not know why I am chosen, but I will not turn from it." The villagers stirred, some whispering hope, others fear. Nia's eyes glistened with pride, though she said nothing. Jabari placed his fist over his chest, swearing wordlessly. The villagers raised their hands in a gesture of unity, their voices rising in a solemn vow. "We stand, we endure, we rise." Kato felt warmth in his chest, though doubt still gnawed at him. In that moment, he understood, he was not walking alone. The night wrapped around them, and for the first time since the storm, hope flickered like a fragile flame against the darkness. The sun sank low, painting the sky in fire as Kato walked with Jabari beyond the village fields. The drums of mourning had faded, replaced by the rhythm of his heart. He whispered, "Why must destiny always be born in sorrow?" Jabari answered, steady and fierce, "Because greatness is forged by fire, not peace." The words stung, yet gave him strength. As they walked, shadows stretched across the grass like hands of forgotten ancestors reaching for their feet. The silence between them was heavy but unbroken, a bond deeper than words. Kato glanced at his friend and saw not just a protector, but a brother bound by loyalty that no storm could wash away. Ahead, the horizon burned with twilight, signaling a path filled with trials neither could yet imagine. At the edge of the forest, they met Abeni, Kato's cousin, her sharp eyes hiding secrets behind a gentle smile. She said, "The people whisper of your rise, but whispers can cut as deep as blades." Kato looked at her, unsure whether to trust or fear her words. Abeni touched the beads on her wrist, her tone soft but edged. "Blood binds us, yet ambition breaks even blood." Jabari stepped forward, suspicion flashing in his eyes, but Kato raised a hand, silencing him. In that moment, Kato saw the storm in her heart, the jealousy mixed with love. She was both kin and threat, and though she spoke in riddles, he felt her words tighten like ropes around his fate. The council fire blazed again that night, flames rising as accusations filled the circle. One elder shouted, "The stranger who stole the crown did not act alone." Suspicion turned quickly to family, and all eyes fell on Abeni. She stood tall, her voice sharp, "You fear shadows because you cannot face truth." Kato's heart clenched, torn between defending his cousin and protecting the fragile unity. Jabari growled, "Words cannot hide betrayal forever." The council's murmurs roared, their faith fraying like cloth pulled apart. Nia struck her staff against the earth, silencing them with authority. She said, "Division is the enemy, not kin." Still, doubt lingered like smoke, seeping into every heart. Later, under the starlit sky, Kato confronted Abeni alone. His voice was steady but pained. "Tell me the truth, cousin. Do you walk with me or against me?" She met his gaze, her eyes glistening with tears she would not let fall. "I love this land as much as you, but love does not erase hunger," she whispered. Kato's fists clenched as her words carved doubt into his chest. She stepped closer, her smile faint but unreadable. "The throne tempts us all, Kato, even you." Her words hung heavy, sharp as a blade pressed against skin. He saw both her love and ambition, an unbreakable knot of kinship and rivalry. The stars above seemed to flicker, as though ancestors judged them both. The next morning, Kato awoke restless, dreams haunted by fire and betrayal. He walked to the river, its surface shimmering with sunrise. Jabari followed silently, his eyes filled with unspoken concern. Kato said, "I fear the battle within will destroy me before the battle without." Jabari answered firmly, "You carry doubt, but you are not alone. I will stand when you falter." Kato stared at his reflection in the water, seeing not just himself, but the shadow of a crown above his head. His breath caught as the river's ripples distorted the image into something monstrous. He whispered, "The throne is both gift and curse." The water shimmered, and for a moment, it seemed as if unseen eyes stared back. The forest grew darker as Kato, Jabari, and Abeni walked deeper into its heart. The air was heavy with mist, and every step cracked twigs like bones. Nia's voice echoed in Kato's memory, "Beware the path where spirits walk." He tightened his grip on his spear, though doubt clouded his eyes. Abeni said softly, "Not all shadows are enemies, some reveal truth." Yet her smile carried a mystery Kato could not trust. Jabari growled low, "Shadows hide blades, and blades strike when hearts hesitate." The group paused near a clearing, where strange carvings glowed faintly on stone pillars. The air shimmered with energy, whispers rising like voices of the dead. Kato's breath quickened as he felt something awaken around them. He muttered, "This is no ordinary place. The past still lingers here." And for the first time, the weight of ancestral judgment pressed heavy against his chest. The carvings began to pulse with crimson light, and suddenly the air shook with the sound of drums no hands played. Kato staggered as visions filled his mind, wars, blood, and a throne bathed in fire. Abeni whispered, "The prophecy breathes through this place." Jabari pulled Kato upright, his voice sharp, "Resist it, these visions seek to break you." But Kato's knees trembled, his spirit torn between fear and destiny. He cried, "Why do the ancestors bind me to fire when I seek peace?" The whispering voices grew louder, swirling like a storm around his ears. From the shadows, a figure emerged. A tall man draped in crimson robes, his eyes glowing with cold fire. The villagers had spoken his name in fear, Oba, the leader who had betrayed tradition for power. His voice rolled like thunder, "The throne is mine, boy, and no spirit will deny me." The sight of Oba froze them, for he was not a spirit but a man who carried himself like one. His presence drew fear from the very earth. Kato rose shakily, pointing his spear, "You poisoned our land with greed." Oba laughed, his voice smooth yet venomous. "I gave them strength when tradition failed them. You cling to ghosts while I seize tomorrow." Abeni's eyes flickered with something unreadable, torn between admiration and suspicion. Jabari stepped forward, his voice thunderous, "Strength that betrays is rot, not power." Oba's gaze cut to Kato, a cruel smile on his lips. "You are nothing but a frightened boy wearing the mask of destiny. The people will kneel to me, not to shadows of a forgotten crown." The words pierced Kato's heart, yet deep within, the fire of resistance flickered brighter. The ground shook as Oba raised his hands, calling upon forbidden power. Flames erupted from the carvings, licking skyward like serpents. Villagers who had followed in secret gasped, bowing in fear. Kato gritted his teeth, sweat streaming down his face. He shouted, "Power stolen is power cursed." Oba's laughter echoed, filling the forest with menace. "Cursed or not, it bends to my will." Jabari pulled Kato back as a surge of fire split the earth between them. Abeni's voice cracked as she cried, "You risk destroying us all." Oba turned his gaze on her, his expression cold. "Sacrifice is the price of rule." The air burned, and smoke choked the clearing, yet Kato felt his fear harden into resolve. He knew then that Oba was not just a rival, but the shadow that threatened his people's very soul. When the flames died, only smoke and silence remained. Oba stood unmoved, his robe glowing with ember light. He said coldly, "Return to your village, boy. Kneel, and I may spare your people." Kato's chest burned with rage, yet he steadied his voice, "I will not kneel to a tyrant who sells our ancestors for power." Jabari stood tall beside him, his fists clenched, while Abeni lowered her eyes, hiding her turmoil. Oba smirked. "Then you will watch them suffer, and their blood will stain your name." With that, he vanished into the smoke, leaving only the echo of his threat. Kato felt his legs tremble, but did not fall. He looked to Jabari and whispered, "The war for the crown has begun." Above them, the baobab's branches swayed in the wind as if mourning what lay ahead. The night after Oba's threat, Kato dreamed of fire swallowing his village. In the dream, the baobab split open, and from within spirits poured forth, whispering his name like a curse. He awoke, drenched in sweat, the sound of drums echoing in his ears. Jabari rushed to his side, gripping his shoulder. "You cried out like one being torn apart." Kato whispered, "The ancestors show me blood, always blood." Abeni stepped into the hut, her face pale, her eyes avoiding his. She said, "The dreams are warnings. They do not lie." Kato looked at her sharply, sensing she knew more than she confessed. His chest tightened with anger. "What do you hide from me, cousin?" Silence stretched heavy, broken only by the crackle of the dying fire. Outside, the night wind carried the sound of distant drums, foretelling betrayal soon to come. The next evening, the council gathered again, torches flickering against the night sky. Elders demanded answers, their eyes fixed on Kato. One elder said, "You dream of blood because blood binds you to the curse." Confused, Kato shouted, "What curse ties me so tightly?" The silence broke as Nia stepped forward, her voice steady but sorrowful. "Because you are not only heir to the crown, but the son of Oba." The words cut deeper than any blade, striking Kato's heart with fire. He staggered back, disbelief burning in his eyes. Jabari roared, "Lies! He is not of that traitor." But Nia's eyes carried no falsehood, only grief. Kato dropped his spear, his breath heavy as the truth shattered the foundation of his life. The villagers gasped, their chants turning to silence, for destiny had twisted in ways none expected. Kato's mind spun like a storm, his voice trembling, "No. This cannot be true." Nia touched her staff to the ground, her eyes filled with pain. Alba once walked in honor before greed consumed him. You are his blood, but you are not his shadow. Jabari stepped forward, his tone fierce. Blood does not define destiny. Spirit does. Yet whispers spread among the villagers, doubt rippling through their ranks. Abeni's voice cracked as she finally confessed. I knew all along." Kato turned to her, betrayal burning in his eyes. "And you let me walk blind into this storm?" Tears welled in her eyes, but she did not deny it. The revelation tore through him, shattering trust, shattering hope. His fists trembled as the weight of bloodline and betrayal pressed upon his shoulders like chains. Kato fled the council circle, his breath ragged as he stumbled toward the riverbank. The moon glistened on the water like silver blades. He shouted into the night, "Ancestors, why curse me with his blood?" The river answered with silence, but his reflection shimmered, showing not his face, but Oba's. Kato fell to his knees, fists pounding the earth, tears mixing with soil. Jabari arrived, kneeling beside him. His voice shook with loyalty. "You are not him. You never will be. Do not surrender to fear." Kato looked at his friend, seeing the only light in his darkness. Yet deep inside, doubt remained, gnawing like fire in his veins. He whispered, "If I carry his blood, will I carry his darkness too?" The water rippled, distorting the reflection into something monstrous. As dawn broke, Nia stood before Kato at the baobab tree. Her voice was heavy with age and truth. "You cannot choose the blood you bear, but you can choose the path you walk." Kato's hands shook as he answered, "If my father is a tyrant, then I will rise as his opposite." Jabari nodded fiercely, placing his fist over his heart. "Then let us fight not just for a crown, but for our people's soul." Abeni approached slowly, her head bowed in shame. "I betrayed you with silence, but if you allow me, I will atone by standing with you." Kato's eyes burned with conflict, but he nodded, for unity was strength even when stained by pain. The baobab's branches swayed gently, as though ancestors blessed the vow forged that morning. The war drums thundered at dawn, echoing across the hills as the villagers armed themselves with spears and shields. Smoke rose from torches lining the baobab, casting long shadows like looming spirits. Kato stood at the front, his face stern though his heart burned with doubt. Jabari lifted his spear high, roaring, "For our people we stand." The crowd echoed, their voices shaking the morning air. Nia stepped forward, pressing her staff into the soil. Her voice quivered but carried power. "The ancestors march with us today." Kato's chest tightened as he whispered to himself, "I will not kneel. I will not become him." The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of war, and the ground seemed to tremble as if the land itself braced for blood. In the distance, Oba's army approached, their banners red as flame. Oba's warriors emerged, armored in crimson and gold, their chants shaking the sky. Oba strode at the center, his robe gleaming like fire. He raised the stolen crown above his head, shouting, "The throne bows to strength, not to ghosts." His soldiers roared in unison, pounding their shields. Kato gritted his teeth, stepping forward. Strength without honor is ruin. his voice carried like thunder across the field. Abeni stood behind him, trembling but firm, clutching a dagger. Jabari barked, "Let them come. We will not yield." The two armies collided with a roar, spears clashing, shields splintering. Dust rose and cries filled the air, drowning even the drums. Kato's heart raced as the battle of blood and spirit began, his fate tied to every strike of steel. The clash of steel and cries of warriors filled the air like thunder. Kato fought with fury, his spear slicing through enemy ranks, yet every strike reminded him of his bloodline. Oba's eyes found him across the chaos, glowing with cruel delight. "Come, son of mine," he shouted, his voice cutting through the storm. Kato's chest burned as rage battled shame, but he roared, "You are no father to me." Jabari shielded Kato from a charging soldier, striking him down with brute force. Behind them, Abeni fought fiercely, her blade flashing though fear haunted her eyes. Nia chanted prayers from the ridge, her staff glowing faintly as if spirits answered. The battle raged like fire, but Kato knew the storm would only end when he faced Oba himself. At the heart of the battlefield, Kato and Oba finally clashed. Spears met with a crack like lightning. Oba's strength was overwhelming, each strike shaking Kato's arms. Oba sneered, "You carry my blood, and it makes you weak." Kato spat back, "It makes me stronger because I choose what to become." Their weapons clashed again, sparks flying. Jabari fought desperately to hold off Oba's soldiers, his roars shaking the ground. Abeni lunged at an enemy, her blade drawing blood, her face twisted with both fear and resolve. Nia's chants grew louder, her staff glowing brighter as ancestral whispers seemed to surround Kato. His breath burned, but his spirit roared louder than Oba's mockery. For the first time, he felt destiny not as a chain, but as a weapon in his hands. The duel raged until Kato's spear shattered, leaving him gasping. Oba laughed, raising his blade for the killing strike. In that instant, Nia cried out, her staff blazing with ancestral light. The spirits surged, their whispers roaring like wind. Kato's eyes burned with sudden fire, and he caught Oba's blade with his bare hands, blood dripping, but strength unyielding. Oba's smile faltered as Kato growled, "I am not your shadow. I am my people's light." With a roar, he twisted, forcing Oba back. Jabari rushed forward, cutting down foes that tried to overwhelm him, while Abeni drove her dagger into an enemy commander, her face streaked with tears. The battlefield froze as Oba staggered, rage in his eyes, but doubt breaking through. For the first time, the tyrant felt fear. The battlefield lay in ruin, smoke curling upward as the cries of the wounded faded into silence. Kato stood trembling, his hands bloodied, his chest heaving as he stared at Oba, who knelt before him, broken yet unyielding. The tyrant's eyes blazed with defiance, even as his strength failed. He hissed, "Strike me down, boy, and prove you are my son." Kato's spear hovered, his heart pounding like thunder, his spirit torn between vengeance and mercy. Behind him, Jabari shouted, "End him! Do not let him rise again." Abeni cried, her voice breaking, "If you kill him, you will carry his curse forever." The world seemed to hold its breath as the wind stilled and the ancestors whispered in the rustling of the baobab's distant branches. Kato closed his eyes, every lesson from Nia echoing within him. Strength without honor is ruin, destiny is choice, blood is not identity. His spear lowered, his voice heavy but firm. "I will not be your shadow, Oba. I will be the light that ends your darkness." Oba roared in fury, striking out weakly, but Jabari stepped forward, disarming him with one final blow. The villagers watched in stunned silence, for Kato had chosen not vengeance, but a higher path, one that freed him from the chains of blood. Oba was bound, his soldiers scattered like leaves in the wind, their crimson banners trampled into the soil. The villagers gathered in awe, some cheering, others whispering of fear at what this victory meant. Kato stood among them, silent, his eyes fixed on the horizon as though seeking counsel from spirits beyond sight. Nia approached slowly, her staff glowing faintly with the dawn, her voice calm but firm. You have defeated more than a tyrant. You have defeated the darkness within yourself." Her words struck Kato like healing rain, and for the first time, the weight upon his shoulders eased. Yet still, he felt the burden of choice pressing him onward. Jabari shouted proudly, "The land is free again," and the villagers roared in unison. But Kato raised his hand, silencing them, his voice solemn. "This is not my victory alone. It is the victory of those who bled, of those who fell, and of the ancestors who stood unseen." His words carried like thunder, and in that moment the people knew their king would be one who bore their spirit, not just their crown. The days that followed were filled with rebuilding, the cries of mourning balanced by songs of renewal. The baobab tree became the heart of council, its roots a reminder of the past, and its branches a symbol of hope. Kato walked among his people, helping to lift stones, to heal wounds, to bury the dead. Children watched him with wide eyes, whispering, "The chosen one." Jabari laughed heartily as he carried timber, saying, "A king who works with his hands will never be forgotten." Abeni moved quietly, her face etched with guilt, yet she offered food and comfort, seeking redemption in every gesture. Nia sat beneath the baobab, her eyes closed, whispering prayers that bound past to present. Though the scars of war ran deep, the village breathed again, and for the first time, Kato felt not just the burden of destiny, but the gift of belonging. On the 7th night after the battle, a great fire was lit in the village square, flames leaping toward the heavens as the people gathered to honor the fallen. Drums pounded like heartbeats, and voices rose in song that blended sorrow with triumph. Kato stood before the fire, the broken crown laid in his hands. The villagers fell silent as he lifted it, his voice ringing clear. This crown was forged in blood, tainted by greed. Tonight, it shall be reborn. With steady hands, he placed the crown into the flames. Gasps spread through the crowd as the fire surged higher, and in the blaze, it glowed, reshaped by heat into something new, simpler, humbler, yet radiant with ancestral power. Nia whispered, "The throne is not in gold, but in the heart of the one who serves." Kato bowed his head, and the people bowed with him, their unity sealed in firelight. When dawn came, the village stood in silence beneath the baobab tree. The fire had burned low, but the air shimmered with peace. Kato stepped forward, wearing not the golden crown, but a circlet of woven reeds and beads gifted by the people. His voice was quiet yet powerful. "I am no king of greed, but a servant of our ancestors and our land." Jabari placed a fist to his chest, bowing low, and the villagers followed, heads bowed in reverence. Abeni approached, tears in her eyes, whispering, "Forgive me." Kato touched her shoulder gently. "We walk forward together." Nia raised her staff to the rising sun, her voice strong. "The blood of tyrants is broken. The spirit of unity is restored." The baobab's branches swayed gently in the morning wind, and in that sacred silence the journey ended. Not with conquest, but with rebirth.